Did Stefon dig himself a hole by not re-signing with the Houston Texans?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. We are your Texans football analysts, insiders, and credential media member, Big SARS, John Hickman, and we're just excited to talk football, talk Texas with y'all today. Thank y'all for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, we'll look at the Houston Texans needing to invest in the cornerback room. Is that an underrated conversation that I don't know if many people are having right now? We have Kamara, we have Derek Stingley Jr., the All-Pro, but is there room for growth? Can familiarity revitalize Shaq Mason, Cole Popovich, Nick Caley? Those two go way back, and they've seen better days with Shaq Mason. Can they get the most out of him, the best out of him, or is it time to just move on all completely? And then SARS kicked it off. Did Stefon Diggs himself a hole? I love that by not signing with the Houston Texans, but let's just look at the future altogether, not only for Stefon Diggs, but for the Houston Texans and that wide receiver room altogether. Sarge, I think that's an important conversation to have, right? There's no dancing around it. The Houston Texans, since they did not extend Stefon Diggs by February 17th, that resulted in $16.64 million becoming a dead cap hit. Re-signing him could have nearly saved $7 million in cap space, which is something the Houston Texans need a little bit of wiggle room in. But now that is a dead cap hit. Stefon Diggs, he's 32. He's coming off an ACL injury. But he was a part of the offense when it was probably looking and operating at its best. What are your thoughts on Diggs not re-signing right now with the Houston Texans?
So I think that what hurt Houston the most is the fact of the money. Like I don't know if the production so much because he is turning 32, I think this year in November. And so coming off of ACL injury, I think that the Houston Texans could maybe find somebody that could take his place as far as production is concerned. Now, don't get me wrong, because Stefon Diggs is, when healthy, is a very, very good wide receiver. Was on pace to have 100 catches and have another 1,000 yards receiving this past season before he got hurt. And so I don't think that they lose. So I don't think that they're going to miss him so much as far as having a wide receiver 2 is concerned. And then let me make sure that I make myself clear, because some people will take this the wrong way. I'm not saying that the Houston Texans don't need a wide receiver 2. I'm not saying that Stefon Diggs couldn't be a wide receiver 2 for the Houston Texans, opposite of Nico Collins. What I'm saying is that I think that signing him to be able to maneuver around to maybe fill some other spots on the roster, given that cap relief, would have helped him more than bringing him back not knowing. Because, John, you know how this thing works. I mean, he's on the other side of 30. He is an older wide receiver, and he suffered a major injury. Father time waits for no one. I mean, you can see that in my beard. And so he's not going. I don't know if he's prone to have another injury, if that injury may set off something else. And even though he rehabs and comes back, he could have another injury. And so I just look at it that way, John. I mean, last season he had 47 catches, 496 yards, and three touchdowns. And so I don't see. I'm glad that the Houston Texans will not franchise tag him, because that'll be a $26 million hit. That'll for 1 year, and that's way more money than even what Nico Collins is making at 24.25, I think. So, not signing him hurts them more as far as the money is concerned than it does as far as production is concerned. Now, John, with that being said, real quickly, if you don't bring back Stefon Diggs, and you know that there is a wide receiver that's going to be a post June 1 cut, that his team is trying to get rid of so they could save money, would you do it? And I'm gonna tell you who that wide receiver is.
Who's that?
Debo Samuel.
No, I'm not bringing in Debo. I'm sorry.
As a number 2 as a 1-year rental.
Yeah,
Brought
I
in
saw.
Stefon for a 1-year rental, and
Yeah,
he
and
does way more. Huh?
I think it backfired. Stefon Diggs for a 1-year rental it backfired against Houston. And here's the thing about Nick. I mean, he has made some very good moves, but this is one of those opportunities to kind of not make the same mistake twice, so to speak. Stefon was a 1-year rental. He goes out October 27th. His last game, I mean, 5 catches, 81 yards. He had a good game for Houston. That was against the Indianapolis Colts. But now what's his timetable to return back for Houston? And this is a team, new OC, right? He's going to want to come in and get some things moving quickly. Stefon Diggs is not locked into this team long term. I mean, he's not going to be a long-term option for anybody moving forward. I don't think so, especially coming off an ACL injury and Godspeed on that recovery process, of course. So I look at him not coming back to get Stefon Diggs. I look at Stefon Diggs and Houston not agreeing to that deal. That may just be the best for the long term, honestly.
Yeah.
And again, we have to look at it from the eyes of new OC. Like if Bobby Slowick was still here, Bobby already knows what he has in Stefon Diggs, so to speak. And I'm sure Nick Caley knows what Stefon Diggs can do on the field. Like let me not make it seem like Stefon isn't Stefon. Like he ain't had one of the top receiver careers in the last decade. Let me not make it like that. But what I want to do, what I want to implement, I need guys here right now. And you can be there mentally. You can either be there, even be there physically, but you're not going to be able to get out there and work out and do some of the things that I want them to do. And it may just be more of a liability at this point. And you may just sacrifice that $16.6 million and move forward without Stefon Diggs. But to Debo Samuel's case, no, I'm not making a move for Debo, man. I'm sorry. If it was Brandon Ayuk, I'd be head over heels, honestly.
Well, John,
the football guy. I mean, I love Brandon Ayuk. I am not big on Debo Samuels. I'm not big on him for a wide receiver 2. I'm not big on him for a wide receiver 3. And I don't know how much. I don't know how much. I mean, he would move the needle for Houston. Obviously, he would be the next best thing here in Houston. But is there somebody out there that could replicate that? And for a 1-year rental, I think that's another decision that would backfire in the face.
John, wait, hold on, time out. You want to bring in Tutu Atwell? I'm definitely would take Debo Samuel as a 1-year rental over Tutu Atwell.
Tutu Atwell will probably be able to be signed on the 2-year deal for maybe about $8 to $10 million, so that it give you a little bit of wiggle room. And not only Tutu, Rondale Moore, I've said his name. Elijah Moore, I've said his name. Who else is out there that I really like? Chris Godwin is out there. J.A. from Jonathan Alexander mentioned his name. So those are guys out there that you can maybe sign for a 2-year deal, maybe 3, and have some wiggle room and longevity there. It's not that I don't think Debo is better than Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell will come in and essentially be your wide receiver 3 effectively. I think that the 1-year rental should scare us. I mean, we're going through it right now, right? What if they don't come back? That was another decision that backfired.
Well, hold on, time out, because you look at the 1-year rental especially for this season, because you don't have no money. Like next season, you'll have some cap relief, and then maybe you start looking at your wide receiver 2, look and see which wide receivers are going to come available. Because right now you're not going to get T. Higgins, because you're not going to get T. Higgins. You're not going to get some of the, I forgot who the other wide receiver is that's right behind T. Higgins that's disgruntled on his team and either wants a new deal or wants out. So you're not going to be able to do that. So I feel like, hey, look, you have the relationship there with D'Amico Ryans. Maybe he could talk Debo into coming in for 1 year. Say, hey, look, man, we'll come in 1 year. We'll give you this. And then you can showcase, and then you can get another long-term deal, maybe somewhere else. But if we can just bring you in for this 1 year to get you
again somewhere else.
John,
that was kind of the threat of Stefon Diggs.
Okay, so
else, and again, we're sitting here
Yeah, but I mean that we're only doing that because Stefon Diggs got hurt, right? And if you look at Deebo Samuels, he brings a whole lot more to the table as far as being a wide receiver. He can bring him out the backfield. He can block. He can do the dirty work. He can do some of the things that you want to do. And all I'm saying for is not for long term. I'm just talking about for 1 year because John, if okay, let's just say you don't get Stefon Diggs back. Let's just say Deebo Samuels off the table. So who's the wide receiver too? Like you still got to either find a rental
Yeah.
or go with what you have, and you still have that deficiency. So why not try to bring in that? And I'm only saying that because there is no more Stefon Diggs. But John, what if Stefon decided that he would sign back here for 2 years, 26 million, 13 million guaranteed, something like that?
I think that's a little bit more favorable. Houston would get him, that would definitely be a bargain money wise, and by the time that they get him back, essentially it'll be around the time that they may need that guy, Stefan, to help them get over the hump as they close out the season. I really want Houston to invest in their wide receiver room by drafting. This is just me talking by drafting a wide receiver. This draft is full of wide receiver twos with some maybe high end wide receiver one opportunities and abilities. So I would love to see them invested that way. But I also, the football to me, watched Deebo Samuels, and I saw him get jammed at the line of scrimmage like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, man. I,
Uh,
I saw I saw Deebo Samuels have a very difficult time separating and getting open consistently last year. I
yeah,
didn't see that out of Stefon Diggs this last year. I saw him get open, and that wasn't an issue for me. So
last year
I
was a
was not
down
a
year
big
for
fan.
Last year was a down year for Deebo Samuels, but I think that we all know what he can do. And John, I know that we got to go to the break, but before we go to the break, all I'm going to say is this: if you do draft a wide receiver two is just like having a rental. You got a rookie. A rookie is a rental because he don't know nothing. He has to learn how to play in the NFL.
I don't know, man. For the Houston Texans, their last offensive rookie turned out to be C.J. Stroud, so
I'm
it could
talking
work
about
out.
from the wide receiver position, John. I don't know how many wide receivers out there right now that'll be available at 25 for the Houston Texans that can come right in and it's going to make that immediate impact. And I'm not saying, me, I'm saying draft a wide receiver at 25 if you stay there and let him build himself up. But I mean, it's going to be just like having a rental for 1 year.
Yeah, we got to talk about Shaq Mason. Can his boys get him back on track, man? Or is it just time to continue to have the thought, move on, get younger, get better? We'll talk more. This is a message from our sponsor, TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with TurboTax experts who can do your taxes as soon as today. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find your every deduction possible and every form to get filed, every investment, everything with a 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only available in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Welcome back, Locked On Texans family. John, I got to go into your wheelhouse right now. I have to go into your expertise. I have to go into where you are definitely the subject matter expert when it comes to these things. I've told you before, I've given you your flowers. I'm going to give you your flowers every time, pretty much every time we talk about this. I mean, I haven't been around someone who knows the offensive line and defensive line like you do, the ins and outs, the minutia, everything that goes on with that. So, John, there was a dust up. There was a lot of chatter at the end of the season when the Houston Texans played their last game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round because Shaq Mason had been out for a couple of games due to injury. As a matter of fact, I think that he was injured the last time that he had played was week 16 in Kansas City, where he got hurt. And I think that's the game Shaq Mason got hurt, Jimmy Ward got hurt, Tank Dell got hurt. Like they lost 3 players in that game, and Shaq Mason was making his return against the Kansas City Chiefs when, and the reason why a lot of people were upset was because the lineup that they had with Juice Scruggs playing at the right guard position, they were getting some type of momentum, and then all of a sudden you kill that momentum, you bring back Shaq Mason, and he does not look good. But John, what the Houston Texans did in the offseason, they got rid of Bobby Slowick, they brought in Nick Caley, a former Patriot coach. They already had Cole Popovich, who they elevated from assistant to offensive line coach. From the assistant offensive line coach to offensive line coach. So now you have Cole Popovich, you have Nick Caley, 2 guys who are familiar with each other, but who's also familiar with Shaq Mason. Can that revitalize his career?
No.
All of that, John, you just got like, nah, he good.
Oh, okay, hold on. No. It's just, no, I think it's just smart to just say, hey man, Shaq has had a great career. He had a good moment for us, CJ Stroud's rookie year, protecting him. But Shaq Mason just looked old. And this is not a shot or any type of disrespect to a once great player. And don't know anything about Shaq Mason off the field, so that could really be a great thing. When you don't know nothing about players off the field, a lot of times that's a great thing. That means they living life right? So, but we saw it, right? And I remember the Houston Texans announcing that Shaq Mason was going to start in that playoff game. And I didn't say it because I was at the playoff party. I didn't say this to anybody, but when I heard that and we read that, I said, "Oh well, I think the Houston Texans are going to lose." So, this is what I think the Houston Texans have right now in Cole Popovich. They got Jerry Patterson. They got Juice Scruggs. They still have Green. A lot of guys are ready to move on from them. I'm a part of that group. However, they still have him. I think Kendrick Green is still on this roster. So they have some guys that, because I've seen Cole Popovich be able to help coach up an offensive line and the system that we are expecting Nick Kelly to operate and run here in Houston, you got some young guys you can get the most out of. Mm-hmm. You look at this draft, you think to yourself, hey, man, who's in this draft that has the highest ceiling and highest floor, so there's not too much of a drop-off that we can maybe look at, maybe first or second round, maybe third round. Who's going to be there? Is there going to be a right tackle that we like in the second and third round that is coming out as a right tackle, and we may feel like, hey, we can move him on the inside, right? I look at Philly's line, man, and they had a guard that was 6'7". I've been saying I think Blake Fisher would be a great guard the moment I saw him here in Houston. But I think he's earned the right to compete for right tackle moving forward, also considering that, Titus Howard is playing left guard. So, no, I think it would be smart to just say Mason has done a good job. Let him go ahead and put his papers in. It's time to move on, to get younger and to just get better. And I don't think nobody's going to be able to revitalize Shaq Mason just because they had time with him.
And John, before I say anything, I got a question. So, do you think that Shaq Mason just looked old, or maybe that blocking scheme wasn't good for him? If they change the blocking scheme and leave the zone blocking scheme and go back to a traditional type, run block, pass block scheme, will that help him?
Larry Tunsil has been in the league a long time. We didn't have no problems with Larry Tunsil pass blocking last year. Titus Howard has been in the league for a long time. Much as I want to say I think he is serviceable, we didn't have too much of a problem out of Titus Howard pass blocking last year. Shaq Mason has been in the league for a long time. We had a problem with Shaq Mason pass blocking last year, right?
Yeah.
There we go. It ain't It isn't, excuse me, it isn't the fact that there was a no, maybe he didn't fit what Bobby Slowick wanted to do last year. The vets got it down. Kenyon Green essentially year 2, Juice Scruggs year 2, Jared Patterson I didn't have too much to say about. But those are the young guys where you would have the expectation of they're still learning and growing. Shaq Mason has been in the league for a long time.
Yeah.
And the other 2 vets on the offensive line didn't have too much of a problem out of them pass blocking. Run blocking is where everybody had a fall off.
Mm-hmm.
But pass blocking, protecting the quarterback is where that team needs to be judged on last year. And Shaq Mason still had poor performances where by the time he's raising his head, to get a good leverage and kick step, man, his defender is already in the backfield.
Yeah.
And
look, can a change of offensive scheme and maybe Cole Popovich taking that step up to the to becoming the actual guy now instead of just being the guy behind the guy, him stepping up being the guy. You don't think he can fix Shaq Mason? And I'm asking these questions, John, and I haven't lended my input just yet because I want to get a clear understanding because I know that you watch these things way closer than what I do.
Yeah, no, I think it's just time to move on altogether. And I don't want to seem like I'm being short, anything like that. But I wanted to make sure I pointed out the other 2 vets. There weren't no pass blocking issues, not from a technical standpoint, not from a just flat out getting it done standpoint. For Shaq, it really looked like age was the problem.
Yeah.
And if I feel like that's the problem, then it's time to get younger and also just find somebody that may fit the future of this team. Shaq Mason is not the future of the Houston Texans at right guard. I don't know how much the future of the Texans going to have Titus Howard, but at least I know if we pass blocking, you'll protect my quarterback.
And John, listen, I don't have too much more to add. I agree exactly with what you're saying. I think that Shaq Mason I think that Shaq Mason has had a very serviceable career in the NFL. What he won 2 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots?
I think 2 with New England and 1 with Tampa.
Okay, and so he's been in the league. He's serviceable. He's a very good guy. I got a chance to talk to Shaq a lot, which is really weird. John, you know who the country singer Jelly Roll is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how Jelly Roll and Shaq Mason is connected. I'll tell you that story another time. But he's a very good guy, John. I did not like some of the things that I seen from him this year, and like you said, I think it is age, John. I think that he has lost a step, and like I said earlier, man, age is the one thing that you cannot run from, John. I haven't ran full speed since 2012, man, and I'm scared because I pulled my hamstring the last time I tried to run full speed. So I know, hey, I'm getting to an age where I can't run full speed unless I have to run full speed. And so with that being said, this game of football, and John, it's only getting, quicker, faster. These guys are getting stronger. These interior offensive linemen are big guys, but they're stronger and they're faster and they're getting off the ball real quick. And if you're not able to handle that, then now you look like there's a lot of times, John, in some of those delayed blitz and those delayed stunts, I'm asking myself, hey man, what are y'all doing? And I'm looking at Shaq Mason. I'm like, Shaq, what's going on? But on the flip side of that, John, a lot of that had to do with the pass protection not being or the protections not being called the right way. So I don't want to say that I'm fully out on Shaq Mason just yet. I mean, if you're going to bring him back, I think that he is once again, use that word, serviceable in the locker room, serviceable, to some of these other guys. And maybe he is the one that if Juice Scruggs is going to be the next right guard, then you help Shaq, you have Shaq there to help him learn that position.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to be On a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. The app is super easy to use and navigate. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Once again, please forgive us for our connection issues. I'm out of town, so the hotel Wi-Fi just isn't the best. But however, Sarge, let me say this. I think Nick Caserio in the front office, they're going to work up something to get some extra money. If the Eagles ain't show nobody anything to win when they win a Super Bowl, it's, hey, man, we got billionaires. We'll find a way to get some people paid, right?
Yeah.
So I think that they're gonna work something out with some players. They're gonna find a way to get them some extra money. Maybe not a lot, but they'll find a way. And I think in finding a way, I wonder what their priority list is on the positions and players that are either out there or maybe inside the building that they want to bring back, or players that get paid. There's some free agents out there. Now, the cornerback room, the two studs.
Yeah.
Eric Stingley Jr., all pro. The young bull, Kamari Lassiter, who, again, it shocks me he was not on any like the rookie defensive player of the year lists and awards and no finalists, because I don't know if there were many cornerbacks playing better than him during the regular season.
That's actually going to help the Texans, though, because now he's going to come back and he already played with a chip on his shoulder. Now he's going to come in with a plank.
Like a tree. Minnesota. But now they got to get better, man. We love Jalen Petrie. I think Jalen Petrie should be one of those players that hopefully he can retire a Texan from the city of Houston area. But the slot position was a position that teams were able to take advantage of and at times compromise the defense. I immediately go to the New York Jets game on their third down call, and it was a one-on-one with Jalen Petrie and Devontae Adams. That is not a favorable matchup, and that is something that'll compromise your defense. I also go to the Detroit Lions game where they were able to get a one-on-one with Azeez in the slot. That is something that you don't want to see happen. The other guys in the cornerback room, Jeff Okudah was a huge letdown. He became a liability. And for the Houston Texans, this is a draft to kind of clean up some of those liabilities at every position that you feel like needs to be an upgrade. And I think the cornerback position is one of them. I like Alexander, the kid out of LSU. 6'2", and this is what you're going to love, Sarge. This is what Texan fans are going to love, right? When you play for D'Amico Ryans, you got to want to hit. You got to also want to come downhill and tackle somebody.
Swarm mentality.
You got to want to swarm, and that's what that young man does. He's very good at the line of scrimmage of getting out, containing the edge on running backs and quarterbacks. He's very good at being able to rip through and to get into the backfield or to just to make a play downhill for a tackle. Also, when you look at one of the top guys that is coming into this draft at receiver, he's shooting up a lot of people's boards, Trey Harris. 3 catches, 23 yards on Trey Harris. He was targeted 10 times against Ole Miss, only gave up 4 catches for 39 yards. He's one of those guys that I think may be a little bit underrated. He can come in perfectly and be able to play in that slot, has good technique, long arms. Only 1 missed tackle this past year, Sarge. Only 1. So he's a tackle securer. You ain't got to worry about that being an issue of having to come in and fix. Only giving up 204 yards this past year, pass rating of 53.2, 2 TDs allowed, 2 interceptions. He's cleaned up a lot of his bad habits from the year before, 2023. He's played a limited number of snaps in the slot, but when you get to the NFL, coaches like to figure out what can you do to help boost a team, and he would be a guy that would be interchangeable with Kamari Lassiter. Those two can go inside, outside, depending on the matchup. Essentially. So I like Alexander, and I think I like him a little bit more because I know the type of coach he'd be playing for if the Houston Texans were to scout him and bring him here to Houston.
John, that's a very good name that you brought up, and I'm watching, watching that young man play. And I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of his games this year. I got a chance to watch a couple, so I like that. But John, I like where you're going, and I'm not gonna, point out any particular player coming out of college that the Houston Texans could draft at that position. I'm gonna tell you where I'm going. I like what you're thinking. I like the way that you're thinking because if anything that the Houston Texans have learned has learned in this last 2 years under D'Amico Ryans and the way that they've changed things here is that at any point in time, you gotta stay ready. And if you stay ready, you ain't never got to get ready. And what I mean by that is injuries has decimated the playoff hopes of going to the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row for the Houston Texans. And so now, yes, you got to go out there and you got to be able to look at who's going to be available. And I'm saying that to say this, the Houston Texans were very, and I'm going to use this word, they were very lucky that Kamari Lassiter was able to play every game. They were very lucky that Derek Stingley Jr. was able to play every game, and you were able to get by last season with them being as dependable. And we know what they can do when they're on the field together. We know what they can do, individually as far as players are concerned on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that defensive backfield. But you got to say, okay, look, we made it, right? We made it through that year. We got to find somebody that's going to come in and be able to back them up, or even, at times maybe, when switch them out if you can, move them around a little bit. But John, that's the one thing. And when we talk about like when you say the slot position, I think that injuries and experience, because I also look at that at New York Jets game, and I'm saying, how is Jalen Petrie locked up on Devontae Adams at such a critical point in time? And that's just not having the experience, John, not having the experience of playing that position in the NFL. He's played it in college, but not in the NFL. I think that we can go back and we can look at week 16 against the Kansas City Chiefs when Jimmy Ward got hurt and they had to do some shuffling and moving around, but you find Kamari Lassiter had to go into the slot position and play slot cornerback, and then they were able to score. The Kansas City Chiefs were able to score a touchdown on that play because he didn't get depth,
Yeah,
and as
yeah,
for a
yeah. I
player that's
remember that.
used to playing close to the line. So, John, I like what where your mindset is in investing in a backup as far as the defensive back is concerned.
Yeah, and just before we close, I mean, Houston has D'Angelo Ross, Kadar Holdman, who I think is a free agent, Chris Boyd, Anthony Everett, and again Jeff Okuda. Miles Bryant is a guy that I think Houston should try to retain. Should have played him more throughout the season, and he's a guy that should get some love. But you don't want to go into another season with any hope of having to bank on D'Angelo Ross to play significant snaps for the Houston Texans. And so I think this is an opportunity for them to look themselves in the mirror and say, let's go get better. And there are guys out there that can help us raise our floor.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with a Z at the end.
At the end, this is the end of the show, but it ain't the end of the week. It ain't the last time y'all gonna hear from us. Until next time, ladies and gents, peace.